It's Thursday, April 15th, 2015, and this is Penn State Sports Night. Tonight we'll have the latest on New England and former tight end Aaron Hernandez.
We'll also talk NBA playoffs and the NFL Draft tonight on PSSN. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nicole Barros.
And I'm Scott Sikowski. Former New England Patriots star tight end Aaron Hernandez was found guilty of first-degree murder on Wednesday. The 25-year-old was taken into custody after he was tied to the late-night shooting of which resulted in the death of Odin Lloyd. The conviction carries a lifetime sentence in prison without any chance of receiving parole. Hernandez was immediately taken into prison that lies only 3 miles away from Gillette Stadium, the home of the New England Patriots. He had $40 million left on his NFL contract before his crimes ended his short career. There has yet to be a date set for his appeal.
After 7 months on the commissioner's exempt list, Adrian Peterson is free to resume his football career. The NFL announced on Thursday afternoon that the Minnesota Vikings running back will be reinstated on Friday and allowed to participate in all of the Vikings offseason activities. Peterson pleaded no contest on November 4th to misdemeanor reckless injury charges after injuring his son while disciplining him last May. The Vikings will start off-season workouts on Monday and hold their first mandatory minicamp in June. It remains to be seen whether Peterson will show up for any of the team's off-season program.
It took all 82 games for the Pelicans to solidify their spot in the NBA playoffs, but with a 108-103 victory over the Spurs on Wednesday, New Orleans locked up the number 8 seed. The win knocked out Oklahoma City Thunder and the hopeful MVP Russell Westbrook out of the playoff contention, but a tough task still remains for Anthony Davis and the Pelicans as they are set to face the Golden State Warriors, who posted an NBA best 65-17 record in the regular season.
At just 21, Jordan Spieth fought off a handful of multiple major winners with names like Rory, Tiger, Phil, and ran away with this year's Masters. The young Texan took home the coveted green jacket in the first wire-to-wire Masters victory in nearly 40 years. He set a Masters record for lowest 4-round score and tied Woods' Masters scoring record at 18 under. Spieth, along with Rory McIlroy, are currently the world's highest-ranked players.
After a 6-month suspension, Michael Phelps has entered in 5 events in his first meet. The 18-time Olympic champion will compete in the Arena Pro Swimming Series meet in Arizona beginning on Wednesday. His last competition was in August and was then suspended by USA Swimming in the wake of his second drunken driving arrest. The 29-year-old swimmer was also banned from participating in this summer's World Championships in Russia, although USA Swimming has had informal discussions about Phelps possibly competing.
Penn State will host the annual Blue-White Spring Game this Saturday at Beaver Stadium as fans will get their first look at the 2015 Nittany Lions. After losing key players like Mike Hull, Jesse James, and Sam Ficken, many players will get a chance to showcase their talents in front of their home crowd. This will be the first time that Penn State will take the field since their dramatic win against Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. The Nittany Lions are looking to build on that success and create some momentum going into the new season.
We'll be right back with this episode of Penn State Sports Night.
Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm your host, Alex Blankman, alongside Rob Breck. We're talking about the NFL draft, which is the draft just 2 weeks away. Hearing a lot of Jameis Winston going first overall pick to the Buccaneers over the past couple of months. Now I'm hearing some Marcus Mariota. What do you see here out of Jameis and Mariota early?
Well, I think that the consensus number 1 overall pick is going to be Jameis Winston. I think that it makes too much sense, being that it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jameis went to Florida State. That's obviously going to be a huge pull. Getting fans to the game. And I think he's just a better quarterback. You look at what he's done. He won a national championship. He didn't beat Oregon, but I think he played better in that game.
Yeah, I think he's more of a pure original pocket passer with the ability to go outside the pocket, as opposed to Mariota, who's maybe more of a pocket passer with the ability to stay in the pocket. I think he's more mature, especially right now with the Buccaneers team, who has Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who has Mike Evans, and who has Vincent Jackson. They have receivers ready to go. They have a respectable secondary. And I just think they can really maybe make a playoff push if they select Jameis now. Do you have any concern about off-the-field issues?
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. And honestly, from what I see, yes, there's been some incredibly immature moments from Jameis Winston. But at the end of the day, when you get to the NFL, if you're in the right system, under the right coach, and I think Lovie Smith is a good disciplinarian, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. I think, you're a college kid, you're going out. I mean, they won, 27 straight games in a row?
That's incredible.
It's not that much of a concern for me. What concerns me more is Marcus Mariota. How do you think the style of play which they played at Oregon translates to the NFL?
Well, I don't think the style they play translates very well, but I think over pro days and the combine, I think Mariota's proved that he can really play with a pro-style offense. And I think he's best suited for an offense with a coach who doesn't have a specific style to run, just someone who can let Mariota play his game. Not as many read options, obviously, as college, because he'd epically fail in the NFL. But I think he's going to be fine in the NFL, given the right amount of talent. A lot of rumor he might go the number 2 pick of the draft. I don't think it would work out with him with Tennessee.
No.
They don't have receiver talent, and he'd essentially be throwing to a bunch of players who have been washed up for years. Maybe ending up on it if he was taken first overall. I think he'd have success, not as much as Jameis with the Buccaneers, because as I said, they've 6'6" Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and then 2 6'5" receivers,
That
Mike
does
Evans
help.
and Vincent Jackson, which of course will help. Ending up on a team like the Jets would help him. 6'5", Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, Jeremy Curley, Jason Morrow. These are guys who he could really throw to. So if he ends up in the wrong system, if he ends up in a Tennessee or a Oakland or a Jacksonville or a team like that who's not ready for a quarterback who has the options ready, he's going to epically fail in the NFL.
Yeah, my problem with Mariota is, who did he play? What did he do? The Pac-12 while he was there was definitely weak. The offense which he was doing, it was first reads. And also, with the Oregon team, they were so fast. They scored so quickly. This guy never played catch-up. It would be 5 minutes and he'd be up 21-0. So that worries me. The national championship game worried me.
Yeah, that was not a good performance.
And also, I definitely think that going into it now, draft is 2 weeks away. Winston is by far the clear number 1 quarterback. But speaking of other position battles, who do you see as the number 1 wide receiver in this draft?
Well, it was Amari Cooper for a while going into the combine, and then Kevin White out of West Virginia had one amazing senior season, and now he's the one everyone's talking about. I think the safest pick in the entire draft out of any player has to go to Amari Cooper.
I agree.
He has the surest hands. He's a little slow. He's a step slower than White, but he's polished already. He can run routes, maybe top 5 in the NFL already. I think
Wow.
he has great hands. He's an amazing route runner, and I know it's just at the college level, but I would say he's the number 1 receiver. But if you really want to go boom or bust, Kevin White's your guy, and I could see him going to Oakland with the 4th pick.
I can see that too, but I think what is the most important thing in the Kevin White and Amari Cooper debate is what the team is looking for. If you're looking for a reliable receiver who's going to help a young quarterback develop, such as in Oakland with a car, I think you got to go with Amari Cooper. You know exactly what you're getting. He's going to be a good route runner. He's got sure hands. But if you are looking for top 5 talent, the potential to get a superstar, I think you have to go Kevin White.
Could you see the Jaguars taking either of these guys? Maybe a guy like Blake Bortles working with them, or are they trusting that Blackman's going to come back this year from all his woes and take over as the receiver everyone thought he'd be?
Well, with the Jaguars, Bortles is developing with Penn State alum Allen Robinson, Marquise Lee. I see them going Dante Flower Jr., that pick, outside linebacker. He's actually come out and said that he expects to be taken number 3 overall.
Yeah, I see that too. I think that's a good pick. Where do you see Kevin White or Amari Cooper, whichever one isn't taken by the Raiders, going?
Well, I think you got to look at 6 with the Jets. That's going to be huge. Also with, I think, the Rams, that could also be another possible landing destination.
I could
for
see
a top
Devontae
recruit.
Parker going there if neither of the 2 receivers you mentioned are there. Devontae Parker, widely, touted as the number 3 receiver in this draft out of Louisville. Teddy Bridgewater's former guy. If he's there at 11th pick, do you think the Vikings could take him?
I think that there's nothing better for a quarterback than getting an old college receiver with him. Look at Andrew Luck. The Colts drafted this tight end. That's only worked out well for them. So I could definitely see that as a possibility.
I think that'd be great for a Vikings team and for Teddy Bridgewater, who's really stepping up. Maybe that would change Adrian Peterson's mind of wanting to play for the Vikings. That would really show that they have promise, and they'd be pretty much a couple defensive players away from maybe even competing against the Packers and Lions.
Yeah. And in a passing league, you can never get enough wide receivers.
Exactly.
So honestly, as these guys fall, you could see any team. It's going to be wide open.
Do you have one sleeper player in the first round, or you could see jumping up maybe to the first round, that can really help a team right off the bat?
Well, I think this guy isn't necessarily a sleeper, but a lot of people are discounting him, and that's Todd Gurley. This guy was a Heisman favorite, a potential top 5 pick before tearing his ACL. And I know that running backs have been devalued over the past couple years. You look at the Patriots winning the Super Bowl with 4 running backs you'd never even really heard of.
Yeah, LeGarrette Blount running for over 200 yards a couple games before the playoffs. So didn't see that
exactly.
coming.
But many scouts have said that Todd Gurley is the most complete player in this draft and has the most star potential. So I see somebody, maybe the Cowboys, somebody late in the first round, picking this guy up and making a huge impact.
Yeah, they have that line, and the Cowboys could really use a running back right now and maybe put them right back where they were at last season. My guy's Max Williams out of Minnesota. He's a huge tight end, 6'7". I can see him going to the Broncos. They lost.
Demarius Thomas.
No, they lost. Who's the tight end?
Julius
Julius
Thomas.
They lost Julius Thomas to the Jaguars, and I could see Max Williams coming in and immediately taking his place and being Peyton Manning's main red zone target.
Yes. Well, now that we've discussed all the NFL draft prospects, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with you.
Hi, I'm Scott Sikowski, and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm here with Alex Blankman and Brendan May, and we are going to talk some NBA playoffs here. It was an exciting game, 82 in the regular season, so let's just get right into it. So, if you were to pick one player who could possibly catch fire and propel their team deeper into the playoffs, who would it be?
Obviously you can go with LeBron, you can go with Curry, you can go with all these superstars. Anthony Davis is the only reason the Pelicans are even in the playoffs to begin with. I'm going with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yes, there's more syllables in his name than he averaged per game last year. Whatever, it doesn't mean anything. He's going to be a star in this league. He's 6'11", he plays as a small forward, he plays shooting guard. He's still growing. By the time he retires, he might be 9'2" for all that we know. He's going to be in the star in this league. And I'm not counting out the Bucks against the Bulls. People are saying, oh, the Bucks, they're the 6th seed, the Bulls, coached by Tom Thibodeau. They know what they're doing, even if Rose isn't healthy, even if they have the issues that they always have. I think that Antetokounmpo, if he can take over this series, he can at least take it back past the Bulls. Obviously, maybe not past Cleveland, but definitely past the Bulls.
I'll agree with you. Antetokounmpo, an absolute game changer. He's 6'11".
And just so you know, half of our preparation for the show is learning how to say his name. That's it.
I just don't see him pushing them past Chicago. I do see him having a nice series. I do see him going to next year standing at 8'11" by the time we get there. And as much as I like him, my player has to be, if Paul Millsap catches fire, then the Atlanta Hawks are going to make the NBA Finals. Obviously, personally, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think the only way that the Hawks do make the Finals, Paul Millsap, a guy, he missed the final 6 games of the season, scored 5 points in 27 minutes in game 82 yesterday. And if he's going to do anything for this Hawks team, if he's going to bring them anywhere like he did the entire season, then he's going to need to stay healthy, and he's going to need to spread the floor like he has, shooting that mid-range jumper while Horford stays down low and Korver stays on the outside.
Well, isn't that the problem with the Hawks, though? They're not a star-laden team. They're a very Spurs.
Is that a problem?
Spursian team. I think that is a problem. We saw that with the Nuggets for a bunch of years. They tried to put it together, say, yeah, sure, we don't have a superstar, but we have 19 players that can play minutes in the NBA.
They were never the ones.
They were
not in the West.
They never played as well as the Hawks did, sure. But they
had the second best record in basketball.
And I think the whole argument of no, you need a superstar to win is overrated. I think that is overrated.
That's fair.
The Spurs don't have superstars. You can say Tim Duncan is a star, or once was.
He's been the best player at his position
you can say Kawhi
for
Leonard's
over 10 years now.
Kawhi Leonard has been a superstar, yes.
He led the Spurs, he led the league rather, in steals.
All right, fine. Then I'll ask you this. Do you think Paul Millsap has the ability to be a superstar, or do you think they don't necessarily need him to be one?
I think they don't need him to be one. I think they need him to be him like he was during the middle part of the season before he got the shoulder injury, which I think is going to end up killing them in the playoffs if the fact that the police hurting Thabo Cephalos's ankle isn't going to kill them.
Do you think that, everyone complains about Russell Westbrook. He takes too many shots for the Thunder, and they have a strong team around him. If the Hawks had a player like that, a superstar,
they'd be significantly worse.
Do you think they'd be a worse team? That's so interesting, yeah.
Because you're right. Russell Westbrook was the star. He was the only star on that team, and look where they are. They're sitting at home watching TV. They didn't make the playoffs. Pelicans got that last spot. And I don't think Atlanta needs that superstar. I think they need their group of stars. I mean, 4 of the 5 starters made the All-Star team.
That's
incredible.
That's insane.
That's incredible. And having all of them on the court at the same time, and Kyrie Irving playing point guard, that was the All-Star. That was a lineup at one point during the All-Star.
I think if it was a one-game series, I'd agree with you, because then you could be like, all right, sure, if Kyle Korver is cold for a game, which cold for him is like making only 2 of his 5 3-pointers or whatever. If Kyle Korver's cold for a game, they could rebound from that. They don't necessarily need that because it's a 7-game series. But if it's just a one-game series, I totally agree with you. A guy like Millsap can take off. Their team is so well-rounded that they don't really necessarily need one guy to play his best. If one guy has an off game, then they can kind of play around that.
If Paul Millsap's shoulder acts up and he can't play like Paul Millsap, I see Brooklyn winning this series in 7.
All right.
I know the Hawks are the best team. Brooklyn has been playing very well recently. Darren Williams has really looked like his former self. And Brook Lopez has had more 30-point games. I think he's had 3 30-point games over the last month of the season. That's incredible. That's not like the usual Brook Lopez. I could see Brooklyn actually taking this series if Paul Millsap isn't up to form.
Brook Lopez
Regardless of who it is, we've seen time and time again that in the playoffs you're going to need someone extra to kind of propel you forward. Last year we had Boris Diaw with the Spurs, except they've been there for a long time now. Do you think that the Spurs are still a favorite to win this, or are they going to be a team that can trip up? And if not the Spurs, who do you think could be a team who can disappoint a little?
Ladies first.
Looking at the West right now, this player that it's kind of the same argument with Millsap. If Tim Duncan can play like he always does during the playoffs.
The thing about Tim Duncan is you can pretty much expect, all right, he's going to score from 15 to 17 points every game.
It's not about the points. It's his presence on the court. You saw the Spurs lost the NBA championship to the Heat when he wasn't on the court. Chris Bosh got that rebound, and Ray Allen made that famous 3 in Game 6. The Spurs, he would have his 6th ring, be going for his 7th right now if he was on the court.
My issue at that point is that Tim Duncan has been the exact same player for his entire career. He hasn't gotten
You're right,
better
that
at
only-
anything.
No,
He
you're right.
hasn't
You're
gotten
right.
worse
You're
at
right.
anything.
You're right. That only got him 5 rings.
Yeah.
It's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm as big a San Antonio fan as anyone. I think people are counting them out like crazy.
Every year.
Every single year, people count out the Spurs. But I think that
Kawhi Leonard is their Rajon Rondo of that Celtics team. Everyone looks at the big 3 as Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan. And Kawhi Leonard is the best player, just like they looked at Garnett, Allen, and Pierce. But that year when they won, Rajon Rondo was absolutely the best player.
just
for
like
them.
how obviously Mario Chalmers was the best player in those 2 Miami Heat. No, I'm just kidding. But that you could make an argument that he was a key.
The Heat sitting at home
a
right
key
now would
cog
have
for
something
them,
else to
yeah.
say about that.
All right.
What else you got?
Well, now that we've discussed all the stars, who do you think is a low-key role player who could kind of step up for his team and take it home?
Well, I think the mirror image of me on the basketball court is JJ Redick with the hair and with the playing style, obviously. JJ Redick is a guy that isn't necessarily a role player anymore. You could argue that he's turned into a legitimate star in the NBA with the numbers that he puts up, but he's a role player in their system. And I think that if he gets fired, if he does all the little things that JJ Redick does, sure, it's annoying to look at. Sure, you don't necessarily like to root for him at all, but if he can do those things that he can do, then I think the Clippers can go pretty far.
One player who you might not say is a role player. After his trade to Dallas, he's been terrible. Rajon Rondo, a guy who led the Celtics to a championship. As I was just saying, he averaged under 10 assists, under 10 points, under 10 rebounds when he was a nightly triple-double threat with the Celtics. He has that ring, and I think he's the role player that can lead Dallas past Houston.
We'll be right back to Penn State Sports Night after this. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Penn State Sports Night. Be sure to check in again next week. I'm Scott Sikowski.
And I'm Nicole Barros.